What people don't understand about entrepreneurship and about business is that to do it well, you need a couple things. Like if you're just wide-eyed and ignorant, like I was as a 21-year-old when I started the business, like you don't have a lot of things you need to run a company well. And I think there's three things you really need. You need capital, you need money to do business well at a high level. To play the game at a really high level, you need money, you need capital coming in the door. You need a network to hire from and to get investors from and get customers from. And the most important one, the biggest and best one of all, is the operational chops. You need to learn how to operate a company. That's a skill.
Nick Huber, welcome to the podcast. Honored and humbled to have you here. Excited for our conversation today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Danny. Love what you're doing, and I think we're gonna have a great conversation.
I know we will. And let's start it off with running track and business. What are the similarities there that people might not be aware of?
Yeah, so I ran track, and I was too white, too slow to be a superstar at the 100-meter dash or the 110 hurdles or the 400 hurdles, which were what I was best at in high school. And I realized that, hey, there's this thing called the decathlon, which nobody really does. There's only a couple hundred people a year who complete a decathlon in the whole country, a couple hundred people a year. And I was like, I didn't even think twice. I was like, wow, that's what I want to do, because not very many people are doing it. I can take the path of least resistance. And if I can be reasonably competent at a lot of things, I can do really well. And so, yeah, I came out of high school where I was, I could win an Ivy League championship in the 400. I did that as a freshman, which was awesome. Won an Ivy League championship in the 110 hurdles, but the Ivy League is not the SEC. It's not the Mountain West. It's not the Big Ten. So every time I went to the big meets, I'm an Ivy League champion, but I'm the 55th best 110 hurdler in the country, right? So I had no chance to become an All-American, potentially go to the Olympic trials. But in the decathlon, not very many people do it. So I did that, and it was great. I wasn't spectacular at any one event. I was reasonable at them all. I could still run a 400 pretty quick and high jump, pretty high, but I had a lot of success. Won a couple Ivy League championships, went and became an All-American, almost one spot away from the Olympic trials. Wow. 10th in the country in 2000, or 11th in the country in 2012. So I think it's just the similarities are, hey, in business, you can pick a good business or you can pick a bad business. You can pick a business where you're competing with Stanford and Harvard kids, which in my opinion is like the, LSU and Florida kids in the 400-meter dash. Or you can pick an event where you're competing with the guy down the street who has a fax machine sitting on his desk and makes $1 million a year. And that's the decathlon. So, and also that, hey, you don't have to be the best at everything. You need to be competent at a lot of different things. As a business owner, we can talk about leadership and delegation, which I'm super passionate about, but you really need to be a jack of all trades to run a company. So track taught me that too.
It's interesting because you spend a lot of time thinking about what games to play, it seems like, but it also seems like in the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey, we're like, all right, what's a thing that can make me money? So it's like you've only started to think more high level about the game to play after you've done it a lot. Is that accurate?
I just think you can play a lot of different games in this world. You can play status games, you can play ego games, you can play money games. And all the entrepreneurs seem to have this really big goal. They wanted to change the world. They wanted to walk around Silicon Valley in sweatpants. They wanted to have the status. They wanted to, and also they wanted to have gobs and gobs of money. They didn't just want to make 150 grand a year by not working very hard. They wanted to have a $10 million exit or a $500 million IPO. I looked at that game and I was like, wow, the odds are really bad in this game. Like, yes, it looks awesome, but the odds are pretty bad. What game can I play in business where I can make 150 grand a year? I set a really low goal. I didn't follow, entrepreneurship Twitter. I didn't watch Shark Tank. I didn't read TechCrunch. I was like, hey, if I can make 150 grand a year and work 20 hours a week from anywhere, I can do whatever I want. Okay, yes, I got to have a 3,000 square foot house in Athens, Georgia, instead of a 6,000 square foot house on Miami Beach, but I can do whatever I want. And that was exciting to me. And I was like, okay, what game can I play? I was like a poker player sitting at the table with chips, and those chips were my time because I didn't have any money. Where can I put my time to maximize my odds of accomplishing that goal? And it seemed that just small business, normal stuff was kind of the lowest risk path. And I was just excited. Like, people are asking, why did you start a pickup and delivery storage company? It was just energy. I had the energy. Like, I was excited by the fact that me and my buddy worked our ass off for a whole week, and we ended it and we had $3,500 each in cash sitting on a bed. Half of it was his and half of it was mine. I was like, damn, we didn't use our degree. We didn't use a network. All we did was go out and work, and this money appeared out of nowhere. We created it. That got me energized.
Yeah. On the process of setting goals, you've said before that I've never set a 5 or 10-year goal. As a matter of fact, a lot of smart, successful people said I wasn't, quote unquote, dreaming big enough. My first goal as a 21-year-old entrepreneur was to just get 100 customers.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I don't think a lot of people think like that, at least that we see online. I'm sure a lot of people actually do think like that. But yeah, it's interesting how there's like an online culture of entrepreneurship, and then there's probably like a real culture of entrepreneurship where the internet isn't real life. Have you experienced that as well?
If I would have set a $20 million revenue goal, I would have given up 6 months in. I would have realized that there is no chance. I got to do something else. I got to go play a higher stakes game. I got to move over to the venture capital world. I got to go raise money. I got to have a new idea. I got to go play a higher stakes game. So the fact that I set a small, approachable, reasonable goal, it kept me energized. And like nowadays, yes, I'm setting some bigger goals. I'm looking at what I want to do with my life. But early on, I was just an opportunist. Like, hey, what do I have at my disposal? What's reasonable for me? What could I potentially do here? And yeah, even my dad, when I told him, hey, Pops, my buddies are going to New York City and getting jobs for $100,000 a year working for, Wells Fargo, or at the trading desk, or at a hedge fund, and I'm going to go start a moving company and moving boxes. He's like, whoa, Nick, really? You're going to use I sent you to the Ivy League so that you could move boxes around? It didn't take long for him to become very supportive of what I was doing, but still, it's just by all stretches of the imagination, I was setting ridiculously small goals, while everyone around me at Cornell, the driven Ivy Leaguers, were setting big goals. They wanted to be doctors. They wanted to be, they wanted to raise money. They wanted to go to New York City and work at a hedge fund and make a couple $1 million a year. It's just funny how time kicks in, and all of a sudden we're 10 years after graduation, or 11. We're only 11 years after graduation right now. And I've accomplished an insane amount in 10 years. But in 1 year, it didn't seem like I did much. From 2012 to 2013, I didn't move the needle very much at all. My net worth hadn't jumped. I didn't know what I was doing. And I think what people don't understand about entrepreneurship and about business is that to do it well, you need a couple things. Like, if you're just wide-eyed and ignorant, like I was as a 21-year-old when I started the business, like you don't have a lot of things you need to run a company well. And I think there's 3 things you really need. You need capital. You need money to do business well at a high level. To play the game at a really high level, you need money. You need capital coming in the door. You need a network to hire from and to get investors from and get customers from. And the most important one, the biggest and best one of all, is the operational chops. You need to learn how to operate a company. That's a skill. Hiring, managing, delegating, firing, selling. Those are all skills that you don't know how to do at all when you start. So setting a really big goal, trying to start a really successful company when you have none of those things, it's a fool's errand. I think you're competing against people with those things, and the odds get even worse for you. It's like playing a basketball game against, Michael Jordan. You're out of luck.
Did you ever feel that way, like that you were like just overwhelmed in business? I remember when I was doing research for this, there was a situation like you were sitting on the side of a road, you were realizing how much work needed to be done. You were seeing how, I think it was moving storage units and helping people from that perspective. But there was just a moment like where you're just like, I know what needs to be done, but I can't possibly do this. And there's no way for me to do this. And like, how far into your business career were you at that point? And break that down for people.
I think to be truly successful in business and to play the game again at a really high level, you have to have at some point been brought into your knees by business. Like it needs
Mm.
to, you need to really experience almost a traumatic event in business so that your stress meters are reset. And what I mean by that is stress is relative. Stress is very relative. I tell the story all the time of like there's two people going home from work. They're in a no service zone and they both get a flat tire and they can't call anybody to help them. One person has a high stress tolerance. They have a stressful job. They're making important decisions. And one person lives in their parents' basement and doesn't work. And they've never been in a stressful situation. Their parents have them in a bubble. They've never suffered, frankly. Those are going to be two totally different events. The same thing happened to both of them, flat tire on the way home. Both equally capable humans, let's assume. The person who's in a high stress job or high stress life and has people riding on them and has seen some stuff, they're going to figure it out. They're going to spend a couple hours. They're going to figure out how to fix that flat tire. They're going to get home about it, and it's going to be a non-event. It's not going to be a situation. A week later, they'll forgotten about it. They're not telling anybody about it. It's over. They might even forget to tell, like a flat tire on the way home. They might forget to tell their spouse when they're eating dinner that night. It's not an issue. Whereas the other person, it is a serious issue. It's a traumatic event. It causes trauma while they're driving in the future. They don't ever want to drive in a non-service zone again. They cry and they tell everybody about it for weeks or months because it's an event. Business is exactly the same. Stress is relative, and your ability to deal with that stress is very relative. I've been broken down by this game because I was in a very, very hard business, a super hard business. We were doing pickup and delivery storage for students where I had to have box trucks in downtown Boston at dorms at the right time with the people's stuff to get it back to them the minute they wanted it. And we had 7,000 customers across 12 states and 25 major colleges, over 50,000 personal items that were not ours. And these are wealthy, affluent kids from all over the world who had very high expectations for services. And we got in over our head a couple of years where we just got too much business. And one of those times, we got a ton of business in Boston, pickup business. And you can always survive the pickup business because you just got to get the stuff to the warehouse. You go there, you make an invoice, and you take the students' stuff to the warehouse. And then they're going to store it over the summer. We're going to deliver it back to them when they get back to school. So we survived pickup season. It was really stressful, but then delivery season came around. We didn't know what we were in for because deliveries are way harder. You got to have those boxes at the right place on a truck to get them back to the students at the right time. And you got to be there on time with all their stuff. Our warehouse was unorganized. Our workforce was not that well planned. And me and my business partner, we get about 4 days into deliveries when we have, 2 weeks left. And we're starting to realize that, oh my God, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough trucks, and this warehouse is not organized. We got unlabeled stuff. We got orders in places we don't know where it is. So we, instead of stepping back from the situation and making a couple hard decisions and going out and finding more people, maybe contracting a company to come help us, we just tried to work our way out of it. We tried to physically work our way out of it, and we started doing labor. And we can talk about how this correlates to kind of some things I'm learning now about business. But me and my business partner said, okay, we can get through this because we've always been able to do it and we can just work. So we spent all day out on trucks delivering items. We'd go home. We would load up the trucks for the next day ourselves. We'd finish at about 3 a.m. We'd make the delivery schedule for the next day from 3 to 5 a.m. We'd answer customer service calls from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. or emails. And then we'd get back out and go on the truck again. And we did this for 3 or 4 days in a row with no sleep at all. And we're lugging boxes, we're driving trucks, and we're six or 7 days into this without sleeping very much. And our employees, we only have 10 or 15 guys working, but we're driving 7 or 8 trucks every day. They're starting to, say, screw this. Like, why am I working for this company? This is chaos. And they're just starting to quit halfway through delivery season. Well, at one point, we've got a chaotic environment in the warehouse because we've got things unorganized. We're short-staffed. I'm running a truck by myself all day, delivering. We can fit 25 orders, about 125 boxes in the back of a 16-foot Ryder box truck. I'm on a truck by myself. My business partner, Dan, is on a truck by himself. And then we have pairs, 2 guys in each other truck. We had 4 other trucks. One guy puts diesel or gasoline in a diesel fuel engine and it breaks down on the highway in Boston. Another guy drives under drives on Sturo Drive, which is a low overpass, and rips the top off of one of our trucks. And then another guy just quit. They put the keys. They put the keys hidden on top of the tire. They locked the truck and they left. And they texted us and said, "Hey, we're out. The full truck is right here, and the keys are on the back left tire." All the while, the customer service calls are literally coming to my phone and Dan's phone, and they're ringing, and they just keep ringing. They just keep ringing. They just keep ringing. And I look, I'm like, "Hey, we can't do this. Like we failed. Like this business is over. The customers are calling us. They're emailing us. They want their money back. I'm driving a truck. My body is breaking down. I haven't eaten. I'm 20 pounds lighter than I was a week and a half ago. I'm chafing so bad between my legs that I'm bloody. My hands have blisters on them from carrying the boxes. My right foot had some kind of carpal tunnel like issue from the gas pedal on the truck all day long lifting up. So I had like a muscle cramp on the top of my right foot. So I was limping really bad. And the phone just kept ringing. Boom, customers are calling, getting upset that their stuff's late. The phone keeps ringing. Boom, boom, boom. The phone's ringing. And I just pull over the truck and have a mental breakdown on the side of the road. And I called my partner and said, "Hey, Dan, we're fucked. We can't do this. Like the business is done." And luckily I caught him at a point where he was in a little bit better of a mind state. And he's like, "Nick, get in the truck and drive the truck. We can do it. We have to do it. We have no choice to do it. Like, I know you don't want to be in this business right now. I know you wish you were anywhere else in this entire world. We're in this big ass city. Our trucks are everywhere. The customers are all upset. But like, what else are we going to do? Get your shit together. Like, get your shit together." And I snapped out of it, got out, drove the truck until it was empty at 5:00, drove to the next one that the guys had left, parked that empty truck there, got in the full one myself and drove that one until 9 p.m. Then I went to the truck that had the top ripped off and threw the boxes in it and unloaded that one all night. Basically, these customers couldn't sleep because they had their bedding and their school stuff in this truck. So it was just a complete nightmare. It was a complete nightmare. And when you experience that, when you experience like, "Hey, I'm losing thousands of dollars right now because these customers are wanting refunds. We damaged a truck that was our truck. The one that got the top ripped off of it was our own truck. So it was going to be on our dime. That's the one we didn't have the insurance policy on, one without a deductible." And like when business humbles you like that, everything else is relative. All other stress is relative. So as you look at people who succeed in business, most of them who can do business, who can grow companies, play the game at a really high level, they've been through stressful environments so that normal everyday things are not big issues. I think just life, if we like compare this to life, people who are fun to be around, a spouse that is worth marrying is somebody who can like struggle with grace. They can deal with stressful situations and they can smile and they're not going to have a meltdown every time something goes wrong. They're not entitled to where they're just rude to service people at restaurants or in hotels. And I just think it's such a valuable lesson that I learned. So yes, I lost money. Yes, that was a really hard business, but it turned me into a badass. It turned me into somebody who can lead other people, grow organizations, do stressful things, and just do uncomfortable things. Like business is just, running a company is just nothing but uncomfortable things, one after the other. And I can do those things now, just better than most people. I'm not a pro. I'm still learning, but I can do them better than the average person. So that makes me a decent entrepreneur.
To go through stress with grace is one thing that's going to stay with me from this episode. How do we get better at that skill other than simply being in the side of the road and having a mental breakdown and being forced to get through it? Like, how can people get better at that?
Yeah, unfortunately it's an art. It's not a science, and the only way to get better is to practice it. It's a muscle. People think, "Hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, so I'm going to read all these entrepreneur books. I'm going to listen to Danny and Nick talk. I'm going to go on Twitter. I'm going to read from all these brilliant people." And what you eventually learn is that all advice is completely nuanced. There's why, as an entrepreneur, every day you have a decision and it's a Y in the road, and you can go left or you can go right. And many, many, many times they both take you to the same place. So how to do business is not, there's no playbook. There is no playbook here. It's just like, "Hey, I want to build muscle. So I'm going to read about building muscle. I'm going to build a plan. I'm going to watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary. I'm going to study the human body. I'm going to build a nutritional guideline. I'm going to spend 6 months doing all that, but I haven't actually picked up a weight. My muscles are actually going to be going away the entire time. You got to go to the gym and you got to pick up the damn weight. So to get better at leading a company, you got to actually try it. To get better at delegating, you got to actually do it. But this stuff is hard. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. Like, imagine all the decisions that led up to me being on the side of the road in Boston with, boxes in the back of a box truck that I got to deliver to students in houses. Like, it was scary all along. I wasn't afraid to actually try it. So there's so many people who have just crippling anxiety about business because it is scary. It is uncomfortable. It is risky. But there's only one way to do it. And I feel pretty strongly that half of business is just having the courage to put yourself out there and try. Like, that's half of it.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. One thing that you've talked about over and over again is having difficult conversations being important. And I'm guessing you talk about that so much because you either have done it successfully or you haven't done it and it's come back to bite you. What have you learned about having difficult conversations that is the reason why you bring it up in so many of the podcasts that I've listened to?
I think communication is the number one skill that an entrepreneur can have. I mean, how to effectively communicate, because every problem, business problem, life problem, it all boils down to people. I'm a firm believer that every problem is a people problem. And where does stress come from in human interaction? It comes from unmet expectations almost every time. Somebody expects something and something else is happening. So you have to do one of two things. You have to step up your level of service to meet those expectations, or you have to have a really uncomfortable call to reset those expectations. So I listened to my friend Jeremy Giffen was on Invest Like the Best with Patrick O'Shaughnessy, and he said, like, he calls it the phone call that you need to make. Like, every single person has a call they know they need to make. A partner you need to split up with, a employee you need to fire, a tenant, a customer, a tenant that's a pain in your ass that you need to let go because the profit that they bring in the company is not worth the anguish, the mental anguish that's on the other side of it. And communicating those problems and making those calls, and it's always scary. It's always uncomfortable every single time. But what you learn is that as a business owner, everything's uncomfortable all the time anyway. Every time the phone rings, it's a problem. Like, problems just rise their way up through the business. Nobody calls me and says, "Hey, Nick, just want to let you know that I was out delivering today and this customer just said we're doing a great job and everything was amazing. I just wanted to tell you that. See you later. Bye." But that phone call doesn't exist, right? It's always, problems working their way up through an organization until they reach the top. And the ones that reach the top are the big ones. They're the bad ones.
It's so funny for you to say that in terms of business, because in your personal life, you had a great tweet here, which is like, keep a note in your phone where you write down little interesting things that happen in your life. My uncle bought a new house, took the kids camping. My son was the first one in his class to count to 100. When you get 5 things on your list, call your grandparent and have a 5-minute chat. And that speaks to like, oh, that phone call does exist of like, everything's good if you are intentional about it. And that's cool to, I guess, show the dichotomy of that, of like, yeah, difficult conversations exist in business. And when people just call you, it's like often something's wrong. But then like in your personal life, and I guess in business too, you could create a similar framework of like, no, the conversation is easy because I made it that way and was intentional about it. So that's an interesting dichotomy there.
It's just a question, like, do you want to be a value add or a value take from people? Most of the time, it's people look at their lives, they look at what they need, and they think, who can get me where I want to go? And I'm going to call them, I'm going to ask. I'm going to call them, I'm going to ask. I'm going to call, I'm going to ask. I'm going to call, I'm going to ask. I'm going to call, I'm going to ask. But if you switch that around and say, hey, how can I be a value add instead of a take? Like, oh, my grandpa probably hasn't been called by any of our 15 cousins in a couple weeks. I'm going to pick up the phone and do that because it means something to him. I'm going to add some value there. Or if you translate it over to business, it's, hey, another business owner, needs some help somewhere and there's nothing in it for me. I'm not going to be able to charge them. It's not a profit endeavor, but I can call and I can add a little bit of value to their life. And then their life's going to be a little bit better. And then you just kind of think about that. Hey, how can I add value to as many people as possible? It's amazing how the value starts coming back at you when you need it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a cool way to frame it. I'm curious about going back to the difficult conversations. Are there any that come to mind for you that you're like, that stands out as a difficult conversation that I either had right away and it turned out amazing, or that was one that it took me a long time to get to the person to let them know what I was thinking? Are there any stories or examples that you could share that could serve as triggers potentially for someone listening?
Yeah, it's numerous, countless things. It's, oh, you have a little bit of resentment or anger towards a business partner because you think that they're not pulling their weight or they've made a poor decision. Are you going to let that fester? And are you going to just start to turn into a wall? And are you going to just start to clash over time? Or are you going to actually sit down with your freaking business partner and have a conversation like a man and discuss it and say, hey, you did X, Y, Z. I expected something totally different. Let's talk about this. What do you think about it? I'm upset. This is how I felt. That's a very uncomfortable call to make. Very, very uncomfortable. Many people don't do it. They'll let a relationship with family members go in the tank over time, over years, because they're afraid to have that conversation with somebody of unmet expectations of their own. Hey, I expected this, and this is what's happening, and I'm not okay with it. I don't know how to feel about it. Let's talk about it. I've had I have a lot of partners. Every single business that I'm in, I have a partner. And when you have a lot of partners, they have expectations of me, and I piss them off, and I have expectations of them, and they piss me off, and that's normal. And the second I start to feel pissed off, I pick up the phone and I call, or I go to somebody and see them. And that has always served me so well to talk about it right then, right that second, instead of letting things fester. Whether it's Dan, who's my best friend and a tremendous value add to so many of my companies, my business partner in everything that I do, or a customer where we're having an interaction and they're just kind of acting like a dick to my people. And I'm like, this is kind of not okay. Like, and you'll be really surprised in life of just how many people are used to kind of fostering a relationship of almost kind of like bullying, like emotional abuse will come a lot, especially through emails. And if somebody knows they're in a point of power and they have all the leverage, they'll act, in ways that are pretty ridiculous. And if you don't nip that right away, then you're going to get more of it. Like in life, you get more of what you tolerate, period. From your employees. If you tolerate incompetence in an organization, you're going to get more incompetence. From a customer, if you tolerate customers emailing you with, snappy demands at 11 p.m. that they want delivered at 9 a.m., if you tolerate that, if you tolerate a boss sending you a project at 3 p.m. on Friday and saying they want it first thing Monday morning, if you tolerate that and do it and deliver, you're going to get more of it. It surprises people. Why are they surprised that if you tolerate certain things, you're going to get more of it, especially when other people can take advantage of you? So, a lot of tough conversations along the way, but if you don't have the security in yourself to fire a customer and say, hey, I don't need this. Like, if you walk away, that's completely fine with me. You can set those expectations really quickly, and everybody wins when that happens.
Yeah, one thing I like to think about is like the work you're doing now is going to lead to more work. And so if you don't enjoy that work, or that's not fulfilling to you, or it's not serving you, it's like you better like it because it's going to continue and there's going to be more. It's like, yeah. So one thing that I've thought about with you is you've had so many different business opportunities come to you and so many different people you've worked with, because in each one of these businesses you're running, there's someone else running it as well. And I'm curious what you look for in the particular people, because the businesses are one thing, but I think it's the people running it that are probably the remarkable aspects to it. And they have certain things and attributes that probably pop up time and time again. What makes for a remarkable person to work with?
Yeah, again, you want to find somebody who has dealt with stress. Like you can't find somebody in a bubble who's lived an easy life and never had anything go wrong and expect them to run a company, because it's totally different. Things always go wrong. You look at the most successful companies of all time, the wealthiest entrepreneurs of all time, they've all been through hell. You read through Elon Musk's biography and about, the fact that he put all of his net worth from PayPal into an electric car company and a rocket ship company, and they teetered on the edge of bankruptcy for years, and he was making decisions with 20-30,000 employees on the line of how he could save these companies. It's no different. It's just a smaller scale. So I'm looking for people who can A, struggle with grace, and and B is delegate, because running a company the right way, you have to tell other people what to do, and you cannot be in the weeds all the time being everything for everybody, or you're going to be a terrible leader. And so that's what I'm looking for when I'm partnering with somebody to grow a business.
And what do most people get wrong about delegation?
First of all, it's uncomfortable, and it's also a relative stress. Period. Like if you're not used to telling people what to do, you're going to micromanage them. You're going to do it poorly, and it'll be relatively very stressful even when the stakes are very low. So there's no way you can do it when the stakes are actually high. So you have to practice it and build the muscle. You have to be in the gym lifting the weight of delegation. But I also think like I kind of break it down as two different sides of delegation. There's one that's delegating tasks, like you're telling somebody what to do. That's the easy part. Like, hey, I'm going to tell a person to do something. They're going to answer the customer service call. They're going to mow the grass. They're going to, install XYZ. They're going to be an on the ground person who's doing. But then there's decisions, and delegating decisions, like letting other people in your organization make decisions that impact the business, that is a really hard part. That's a really uncomfortable thing. But guess what? Right now, my controller at Bolt Storage is making a decision right now on what I am willing to pay for a building. Like they're underwriting self-storage, trying to figure out how much it's worth, and they are making the call of what Nick is going to pay for a building.
And how much? What is the range of money that they're going to pay?
They're making $1 to $15 million offers on buildings that I have delegated the decision to them, because they've proven over and over and over again that they can do it, and that they are thinking about things the right way. They're thinking about risk the right way. They're being good stewards of my money. But a business can grow and a business can thrive without you only when you delegate, when you reach that second level of delegation, which is decisions. And the way that you live a stress-free life is to put people who know how to make decisions between you and your problems. And business is no different. Business is full of problems. You're solving problems all day. There's bottlenecks that are holding the business back, whether you want to grow or you're just trying to maintain. There's problems that rise up through the organization. If you put smart, competent people who can make decisions between you and those problems, your job starts to go away. And the company can grow and thrive. And all of a sudden you get an update 3 months later. I'm still very involved in the real estate business, but other companies, I'll be like, I'll get an update email that says, hey, we these were the struggles. These were the decisions that we made. And the business is kind of unlocked and growing really fast. And wow, that's pretty awesome. And this is all just leverage. Like you're operating from a point of leverage. And when you have leverage and you can make money when you're sleeping, it explodes your mind on what's really possible when it comes to entrepreneurship. And there's this culture around 70-hour work weeks, around grinding. There's a culture around sacrifice everything else in your life. If you want to play business, if you want to play the game of business at a really high level, you have to sacrifice everything else in your whole life. And you realize if you delegate well, that's just not true all the time. It's not true. So I'm on a mission to prove to people that I can play this game at a high level without sacrificing my health or my marriage or my parent, my kids, my friendships, my hobbies, things like that.
Yeah, you've said before, I want to operate businesses at the highest level, but I also want to have a balanced life. I want to have great relationships with my kids. I want to be a great husband to my wife. I want to have a lot of hobbies. I want to be a scratch golfer. And you said you're attempting to do this on 20 to 30 hours a week. And I'm curious, like, where do you currently stand on this? How is the mission going? And why is this the mission? And when did you realize that it was a mission of yours?
I just like, what's the purpose of business? If we boil it down, what's the purpose of money? If you're so obsessed with the game of business, and look, first of all, I understand why it's obsessive. It's real world gambling where the odds are in your favor. That's what business is. I'm putting chips on a table and I know the odds are 70% that I'm going to win. So why would I not want to do that all day, every day? Because I'm making bets, period. I'm making bets. I'm making decisions. I'm making bets. I'm betting on people. I'm betting on businesses. I'm making investments. We're buying a building. And then And I'm doing it with incomplete information. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know everything. So I got to wait and see. So I make a bet and then time starts to go by and then I start getting feedback on my decision, whether I was right or whether I was wrong. There's nothing in this world more exciting. And I'll tell you for the people who haven't done it, there's nothing in this world more exciting than making a bet, putting money on the line, and learning that you were right and making more money in return. And then when the odds start to, it's like gambling with the odds in your favor. It's literally like Las Vegas. It's like Las Vegas. Business is, if you're good at business, it's Las Vegas where the odds are in your favor. So many people get completely obsessed and addicted to business. That's why it's amazing, and that's why I'll always do it. You could say, Nick, I'll give you $1 billion right now to never do business again, and I'd probably turn it down just because it's so freaking fun. Now you go to the other side of it. What's it all for? If you're just going to work 70 hours a week until you die, why would you be after all this money? Why would you want the flexibility? So yeah, I want to build relationships with awesome people. I want to stay physically fit. I want to explore and adventure with my kids and my wife. So yeah, and also just, I'm a stubborn guy, and people tell me all the time that, Nick, you're leaving money on the table. You don't work hard enough. And I hate that. Like I want to prove them wrong. Like I have a chip on my shoulder now that, hey, I can get really rich. I've mentioned that I want to, it sounds ridiculous. I want to be a billionaire. I don't really give a shit if I'm a billionaire or not. I know the odds are against it. Like I could care less.
Wait,
if I did it though, like if I became a billionaire working 20 hours a week, that'd be fucking epic. Like I don't know anybody who's done that.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely would be. But are the odds really not in your favor for that to occur? You've said, when I turned 30 years old, my net worth was 1.5 million around. I turned 34 in a few days. This was in this year. And my net worth is approximately $25 million. My financial goal is to become a billionaire by age 50. That seems pretty reasonable and kind of expected given compounding. Is it not? If you want to continue
from the outside looking in, it's definitely easy to see that. But when it's all on me and it's on my decisions and it's on my investments and it's on not selling too early, that's a big part of it too. It's different. It's a different ballgame. Like the mental, and also I'm good at taking things from 0 to 1. I can build a business to $1 million a year of revenue. We built a business to, almost $1 million a month of revenue. I'm not the operator, but Support Shepherd is growing very, very fast. But I've not done it. I've never taken a business myself as the head strategist to those levels of $25 million, enterprise value, $50 million, $100 million enterprise value. And I'm going to have to do that if I want to become a billionaire. So it's an exciting journey, but no, I don't think it's a given at all. It's a lot harder to do it than people think.
That's interesting. How important has growing on Twitter been to finding these people? You mentioned Support Shepherd, but there's 10 different other businesses that are linked down below. People can check out if they'd like. And it's like you find most of these people, I assume, through Twitter and through them resonating with your message. Is that accurate? And how important has Twitter been in your flywheel of growth?
It's been the center of it. I mean, so people think, who aren't familiar with Twitter, like, oh, you could get a lot of followers and you can get paid $500 to $1,000 to tweet a tweet. That blows people's mind. That, oh, Jobber paid me last month $1,500 to make one tweet. And they're like, what? You made $1,500 for one tweet? Then there's the next level of like, hey, we grew a business. We grew a business from $30,000 to $50,000 a month, and that range was where Shepherd was when I started promoting it on Twitter. We've grown it to $1 million a month, and that business is worth $25 million.
Wow.
I'm a minority partner. I only own 12.75% of that company now since Sean Puri bought in. But yeah, that's the next level. They're like, holy shit, what? You made 80 grand last month from Support Shepherd and you don't own it? Like what? Like, you don't operate it? Like, you're just tweeting about it? That's insane. That's insane. Then there's the level beyond that where it's like, hey, yes, I can grow businesses now. Okay, I can get paid to tweet. I can grow businesses. The level beyond that is like, I can find people who know how to do things amazing. Like, I can leverage it to find talent. Like, I can find operators. I can find people who have run businesses. So it's like, I made a list of, hey, these are businesses that I need. I don't care if other people buy them. This is what I need. I need a performance marketer who knows how to do AdWords. I need a recruiting agency in the Philippines, and I need another recruiting agency in the United States. I need a web development agency. I need an SEO agency. I need a property and casualty insurance company. I need a cost segregation firm. So they, like, I made a list of all the things that I need. Like, all my companies need those things, all of them. Where can I find the best operator that has done it? A, they've started a company, and B, they're really freaking good at what they do. Twitter has allowed me to find these people who are exceptional at building businesses and doing these individual things. And so, yeah, here we are a year later, and I'm starting up 8 other businesses that, just I'm looking at my profit and loss, like the expenses on my profit and loss statement. I'm like, hey, I'm spending a lot of money on property and casualty. I'm spending a lot of money on insurance. Maybe we should start an insurance company.
Oh, it's funny. You say Twitter, but what Twitter really is to me is writing and the skill of writing. How have you become a better writer in the past 2-3 years since devoting so much of your time to Twitter?
It's another thing that's practice. So yes, I'm naturally a content creator. Like I write all the time. I can't help myself. Some people it's work. Some people are getting on Twitter and they're like, oh my God, what do I write about today? I'm on Twitter and I'm like, wow, I need to stop tweeting so much, and I need to schedule some of these tweets for later, and I need to take them off Twitter because I write too much. I have a little notepad beside my bed. It's full of ideas. I can't stop writing in it. It keeps me from sleeping well. That is just me. I write all the time. I love it. I can listen to a podcast with 2 awesome people. I'm listening to Jocko Willink and Ryan Holiday right now, and it's a 4-hour podcast, and I can take these little ideas, and look, another big part about this, no ideas are new. Nothing I write up is new. Everything's already been talked about. Everything's already been discussed. It's all about your ability to apply it to different things. I just take these ideas and apply them to my own life because I'm running companies and I'm buying real estate, and it starts to resonate with people. So it's all I'm doing. I'm reframing ideas. I'm bringing out new nuance. I'm talking about things in a different way. And that's where all the content comes from. And it's just years of practice. But yeah, the written word it's what I do all day. I run my companies by typing into my iPhone. It's crazy. It's the written word is everything. So people who they need to pick up a call, like there's 2 massive skills in this world. There's picking up a phone and having a conversation with somebody. There's a lot of people who have made millions and millions of dollars by being able to do that really, really well. There's a lot of people who are better than me at that. The written word, being able to write an email, being able to write Slack directions, being able to send a text message, like it sounds silly, being able to send a text message that's very clear and concise and persuasive, these things matter. And if you're a business owner and, oh, I'm old school, I like to pick up the phone, and you're ignoring your writing, you are at a disadvantage, a serious disadvantage.
When did you realize that about yourself, that you just loved creating stuff or writing things down and sharing it with the world?
I don't know. I've always messed around with it. Like when Yik Yak was big right out of college, like I was messing around with little copy, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was copy of what might go viral. Then I was on Reddit writing about entrepreneurship and business, and then I was doing the podcast, and I switched to Twitter in 2021 or 20, and that's when I just got lucky and some people started resonating with my message, and now I get to do what I love doing the most, which is write and have people actually read it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like in some sense you can learn the skill of writing or content creation, but in another sense, I feel like it's just like born into you. Like at this very desk that I'm sitting in right now, I launched a blog when I was 12 or 13 years old. And it's just like in me to like look at the world and want to tell other people about the things that I'm learning or seeing. And that's what I see time and time again over these episodes. And so I guess I really want to inspire people or to ask people, what are those things for them and where were the signs in the earliest days? Is there anything you could point to of like you being a young kid and looking at the world and be like, I want to tell people about this? Does anything come to mind?
Yeah,
because I really think
it's
yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's curiosity. Like I'm a curious person. I could be having a conversation with somebody who I know nothing about, and I'm genuinely interested in what they have to say because the world is fascinating to me. I can find myself in deep rabbit holes on YouTube and on Wikipedia at 3 a.m. because I just want to learn about different things, the history of things, how they work. So I just think it's energy. It's like energy and curiosity. Put those two things together, and you're just things are interesting. Things are exciting. You have the energy to want to learn and talk and read and write about things. A lot of people are just, they don't have the energy. They get home, they sit on the couch, they drink 4 beers, they watch Netflix, they get up the next day and do it again. Like, that's the extent of what it is, because nothing draws their energy out. Okay, maybe pro sports, maybe they like watching football and talking about football. I just happen to like business and want to talk about business. So I don't know. It's a very interesting thing, and I'm not sure it can be taught either. I think a lot of it's natural.
That curiosity for you is something that I noticed time and time again when I did research for this, where I noticed you would often ask the host, where could I be better at this? I notice you have this skill, or I notice you are a few years ahead of me. Where do you see it? Where could I be going wrong? And I feel like that is so refreshing as a listener of a podcast. Like, oh, wow, I could sense your curiosity. I could sense your interest and knowledge for learning. And that is such a remarkable trait of yours. And I have to assume is one of the reasons for your success is because you're constantly learning, constantly curious, constantly asking questions. Would you agree with that?
I think success can be a really dangerous thing. There's so many stories of it. There's stories from the leaders of countries during World War II to business owners who had an amazing business built and just lost it all. And success is crazy because the more success you have, the more confident you get and the more blind spots you make. So it's really easy, especially when you become notable and almost famous in our own little worlds. I'm not famous by any means where I can't walk around 99.9% of America without getting recognized. Like, I don't have to worry about like fame at scale, but in this little community on Twitter about entrepreneurship, people know who I am. So it's really easy for me to write and just think I know everything and talk on this podcast with such confidence, and it makes me forget that, hey, Nick, you're 34 years old. You haven't been through a serious recession. You got a couple businesses that you've built. You are not God. You are not. So it's easy as a influencer where hundreds of thousands of people are hanging on my every word on the internet to kind of become my own version of, like, it sounds ridiculous, but you can become your own version of God. And that's a really dangerous place to be. It can happen in organizations too, where you surround yourself with people who agree with you and they want to say yes to you because they're afraid of the backlash, and you control their salary and their family's livelihood. So my goal is just like, hey, Nick, you don't know everything. I have a little thing on my mirror right above where I brush my teeth that says, change your mind on something today. It's a little bit of piece of paper. It says, change your mind about something today. And so I go in every day like, hey, Nick, you could be wrong, and it could be a very, very expensive lesson. You could be wrong about this. It could be very, very expensive. So I have 8 people now across my portfolio of businesses. They've all built my trust. They've all proven to me that they're serious. They know what they're talking about. They're good critical thinkers. They're good decision makers. And they have full reign all the time to tell me that I'm a fucking idiot. That sounds silly. That sounds silly, but how many business owners have everybody in their business afraid of them? There's so many stories about that. I'll be in a meeting and I'll be like, hey, guys, I'm energetic. I'm charismatic. I talk with certainty. I talk louder. I'm a good salesperson. If anything I say starts to strike your bullshit meter and you think it might be wrong, call me out. Call me out. And it happened in my real estate company. My operator, a guy that I really trust, my controller, he went on vacation for a week. And at this time, I didn't have anybody else who could help me underwrite these deals. So I underwrote 5 deals that my acquisitions people brought in. We made offers, and 2 of the deals got accepted. 2 of the offers got accepted. And I was like, whoa, man, we're growing. This is great. Guy gets back from vacation. He's like, Nick, what the fuck happened? I'm looking at these deals. They're horrible. These are horrible deals. You're offering way too much money. And I'm like, whoa. At first I got defensive. I'm like, do you know who you're talking to here? Like, I am the sweaty startup. Just kidding. But no, in reality, I was like, oh, really? Okay, what's the matter? And he went through it. He's like, you're calculating this rent growth. Like, that might not happen. Look at these buildings. Like, they're not that high quality. You don't have enough CapEx budget in here. We're overpaying. Like, we need to pull these offers. And I was like, you're right. Let's do it. Let's pull the offers. I was wrong. I'll apologize to the acquisitions guys who thought they were going to get deals and commissions on the deals. So just those events in business, keeping an open mind and being just willing to search for the truth instead of search for being what's right. It's so easy to like, hey, I want to be right. I want to be right. I want to prove everybody I'm right, when it's way more profitable to just want to do the right thing.
Is there any situation that strikes as the difference between when you started to think, oh, I want to seek the truth versus I want to be right?
It's so another great thing about writing on the internet is that I get to preach to myself. Like I get to remind myself, and then I have to I have to walk my talk. Like I can't just talk the talk and do as I say, but not as I do. I'm in this. Like I'm talking about it. I'm preaching it. And everybody thinks I'm writing and giving everybody else advice. I'm just talking to myself. That's all I'm doing. I'm reminding myself. Twitter is my journal to me. So I'm just talking more and more about it so that I get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. You said you have on your mirror in the morning, change your mind on something today. I'm curious, are there any other things you repeat to yourself often throughout the day, or things you see often that help guide your thinking?
Yeah, it's forming good habits is another one. Like good habits are really hard to keep over the long term. Working out twice a week, eating right, not drinking too much, not just buying everything I want all the time now that my bank account has enough money in it to do that. And it's just discipline. It's not easy. Like I'm not the best at it. I'm not. But another thing is like so many people are radical. They get into something and they're super radical about it. Okay, I want to be healthy, no alcohol. I want to be healthy, work out every single day. I want to get rich, work 70 hours a week. That's how a lot of people think. It's like all or nothing. And what I've learned is that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable over the long run. So you want to be fit over the long run, get a workout routine that takes 20 minutes and do it twice a week. Get some good tasting healthy food and eat it when you can, and then eat at restaurants sometimes. It's just balance, and like it's way more sustainable over the long run. And so my goal is just to be a balanced person. Like I want to be balanced. I don't want to be dependent on a certain schedule. I don't want to be, super limiting in what I like and what I don't like, and a health freak to where I won't eat at restaurants with my friends or have 7 beers when I'm with family members having a great time. It's all about balance.
Yeah, you've said before that you've read Atomic Habits once a year. I think you said you finished it for the 4th year in a row this year, Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that kind of sparked my idea of like, wow, like this sounds funny because Atomic Habits is such a popular book, but it's like, that's an unpopular thing to say in some sense because it's so obvious. It's so boring. Everyone knows about it, at least in our little circle of Twitter here. And that's what I like so much about what you tweet is like, it seems like it seems like what you actually believe. And you are speaking like, yeah, this might be an unpopular opinion, even though it's a popular book that have helped me, but you're willing to say that. Have you always been that way? Willing to say the thing that is true to you, even though other people might not like it?
Yeah, I think the struggle with being a personality on the internet, if you try to please everybody and you try to be unauthentic, what you end up is with 0 true fans, like 0. And in order to get true fans, in order to get a true fan or 2 or 3 true fans, you got to piss somebody off because they're going to disagree with how you live and they're not going to like you. It's just the fact. Like if you try to please everybody on the internet, you're not going to be interesting. Period. Like nobody cares about you. So yeah, I'm not afraid to tell people how I feel. A lot of people think I'm playing games on the internet, and yes, a lot of my tweets are jokes, and I have a weird sense of humor, and I love riling people up. But for the most part, I believe most of what I write, almost all of it. And yes, some of it is controversial, and yes, sometimes they're like, really? Nick thinks that? I'm not afraid of what people think. I'm secure enough in my being to not give a shit what Mom's Basement 42069 thinks about me on Twitter.
Um, one of your tweets that got people riled up was, "There's no worse habit in the world. I think there's a direct correlation with being overweight, lonely, single, broke, and depressed. My kids will not own video game systems while in my house." Where did that one come from? And did you know that was just gonna piss so many people off?
You know why it pisses people off is because they know that there's a strain of truth to it. I mean, it wouldn't make anybody mad if they didn't think it was real. Like, let's just be honest. I mean, so look, there's outliers all over the place. There are people who have played a shitload of video games and they're fit, they have tons of hobbies, their relationships are strong, and they're rich. I don't know very many of them. Like, if we just looked at the data, let's correlate hours of video games per day and success in all areas of life, including fitness, relationships, business. We all know what the data would show. Let's just be real. Can you really argue it? Yes, there's a very high correlation. Another problem with Twitter is that it's almost all tech. It's almost all futuristic dreamers. So they're all interested in video games. Like, and many of them have been very, very successful. Many of them have been. Like, there is a correlation between tech founders who build things and engineering minds and people who are interested in video games. Absolutely. And there are great things about video games. I've played them before. But, like, let's be real. Video games are a pretty big detriment when you sit down and do zero work and obsessively do something for 8 hours in a row. That's not a very healthy habit.
It's interesting too, because you said in a previous podcast that you were trying to get into video games after, like, you broke your foot or something, like you had some surgery. So I don't know when that tweet was in relation
I got
to
an Xbox.
your yoga accident.
Yeah, I severed a tendon in my foot. They had to put it back together. I was laid up for 2 months. So I ordered a video game system, and I realized that video games are not that approachable now. I had to download games. My system could only fit 3 games on it, and then I had to delete one. I tried to get my son to play with me. He had to make another account. I'm a tech savvy person. I could not figure it out. Like, they're over the head. They're unapproachable now. So I think if I can keep my kids from getting into video games until they're 18, there's zero chance they can catch up to anybody else to have fun playing video games, and they'll just never get into it. That's my hope.
You know, a big piece of your life is around family and parenting, and that's one aspect that this podcast often goes to, because how we parent or how we think about parenting, I believe, is often applicable to parenting yourself if needed. And so I'm curious what lessons you've learned from parenting that other people can take, even if they're not a parent themselves.
Yeah, I mean, let me preface this by saying I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I'm not an expert. I haven't dealt with high school problems. I haven't dealt with kids getting bullied. I haven't dealt with a big health scare. I haven't, life is hard. That's one thing I know. Life is hard. Life is hard for everybody. I know rich people who are miserable. There are a ton of drug addicts who are wildly successful actors and movie stars. Life is not easy. It's always hard. There's this level of admin in life that you cannot delegate. You cannot delegate a fit body. You cannot delegate a good habits around sleep hygiene and what you eat. So, and also the admin of life. Like, you're going to get rained out. You're going to have delayed travel. You're going to have health problems. You're going to have inconveniences no matter how much money you have. So what you have is people who are used to bending the world to their liking because they're famous or they're rich or they're successful. And there's so many areas of life where you cannot bend reality. So I want to raise kids that, yes, we have resources. Yes, we're going to have money. Yes, we're going to have opportunity. If I do my job right, I hope so. But they have to be able to struggle with grace. It comes back to, like, the relative stress. There's no worse way you could set a kid up for life than putting them in a bubble and trying to keep them from feeling pain. And so many parents will put their kid in a bubble and try very, very hard to keep their kids from feeling pain, because that's natural. Watching your kids suffer sucks. My wife can't do it. It's my job. She cannot watch the kids suffer. It's just not in her DNA as a person. So I feel very strongly that you got to put your kid in uncomfortable situations. Decision making is a skill that is built over time. It's a muscle. And if you do not let your kids make decisions and live with the consequences of those decisions, they're not going to be able to make real decisions when it comes to life. And they're going to go to college and they're going to make horrific decisions. I've seen it time and time and time again. So yeah, it's a combination of not being too protective and just setting your kids up to feel the struggle of life. And too many successful people try to shelter their kids from feeling the stresses and pain of life. And it's the worst thing you can do for a kid. It's how to turn a kid into a worthless adult.
It seems like the thing that keeps popping up over and over again is you have to struggle, and you have to learn to struggle with grace. And I feel like if you don't have struggle, you don't have a life that's worth living in any way. And if you don't even have that in front of you in that moment, you need to create it for yourself, or find a way to create some struggle for yourself so that you can be able to, when the next thing comes in life that will inevitably slap you in the face, be able to look at it and be like, well, it's okay because I practiced for this scenario through my fitness or through something else. I,
Yeah.
I'm I'm curious for you. You mentioned habits a few times as well. What is the one or two habits that you think makes the biggest difference in how you're operating and how you're making decisions on a day-to-day basis?
I don't know. That's is there habits that's leading to my decision making that are positively or negatively impacting my decisions? I don't know. Yeah, I think decisions are just it's practice. It's a muscle over time, and you got to start with low. You got to start with low risk decisions. Like I'm not going to give my 6 year old a decision that could impact their life, but I'm going to give them a decision that can impact what they get to do after dinner, whether it's going to be something fun or it's not going to be something fun, and that's their version of it. And then when they're 16, like there's a decision of, hey, you're going to start having sex with people. Like, are you going to make a decision to put a condom on, or are you not going to make a decision to put a condom on? Like, that's something that I need to prepare them to make the right one. Then they're 18 and they're going off to college. Hey, are you going to sit and study, or are you going to go drink 15 beers at the frat house? That's another decision they need to be able to make. Then you get out of college. Are you gonna make the decision at work now to advance your career, or are you gonna make the decision to do what's easy and fun in the near term? I think so much of it is like delaying gratification. If you're willing to delay the gratification and work for things that'll make your life better 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now, instead of what's going to maximize my happiness today or next week, you can get really far, because 60% of Americans are making decisions to maximize their happiness today, right now.
Yeah. But I found that like drinking with my high school and college friends was like some of the best memories of my life. Like, and that has paid dividends, even though that was a win, a short term, gratification in the moment. Like long term, I'm really happy I did that. And,
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
so like, I agree with you in that idea and that thesis, but it's like in the practicality of that moment, how do you determine what the right amount of short-term gratification to have in any given moment is?
Oh, let's be clear. I drank beer Wednesday through Saturday all through college. Like, let's be clear. I made decisions that maybe didn't optimize next week, but yeah, I do not regret, of course. But then there's the decision of like, hey, I have to do something. I have to study, or I'm going to fail this exam, or I can go drink. That's the one I hope my kids are strong enough to make.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's all about balance, of course. Yeah, like you can have a shitload of fun all the way through. You can do a lot of things that maximize your enjoyment in the near term, and while still keeping an eye on the prize. It's a tough balance. Like there's so much nuance in life that there's no right way to do it.
Yeah. When you mention regrets, do you have any in particular that stand out as like, I wish I did this differently? Or because there are a lot of people in their 20s listening to this podcast. So I'm curious, in your 20s, what is one or two things you did where you're like, oh, actually, if I did it this way, like I would have been further ahead, or I would have had more enjoyment, or anything like that stand out?
I don't have a lot of regrets. Like I feel really, really good about where I am and when I got here. But yeah, I ran my business like an idiot. Like people don't understand. Like I made so many poor decisions. I did not know how to delegate. I didn't hire enough people. I didn't train them the right way. I didn't set them up for success. But I don't know that there was another way. Like, is there another way to just automatically be better at business if you don't suck at it first? I don't think there is. Is there a way to like run a 4 minute mile if you don't run a 5 minute mile first. Like you gotta suffer, you gotta suck a little bit before you get better. So I'm really glad I started my business when the stakes were low. Like I could learn, I could mess up because I didn't have kids, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have a lot of pressure, and I got to just build those three things, which is capital, network, and operational chops. Like I got to build those three things while the stakes were low, and now the stakes are higher, and I'm better for it. So I'm really glad I started my business right when I was in college.
One of the things that I see happening culturally is, we put entrepreneurship, career on a pedestal in society, broadly speaking. And that has led to people having less children, having less, they're pushing back the age in which they're having marriages and really significant relationships. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What what should be done about it if it's not optimal? And what are your current perspectives or ideas around it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, the vast majority of humans, make it a point to procreate and make kids. What the loudest people on Twitter are not those people. But like we got to forget, we can't forget that the people who have the followers on Twitter are the 1% of the 1% in coastal cities, like talking their book, like talking what they believe in. Like that's true. It's true.
Totally.
So yes, it's a problem that a lot of these really brilliant people are hanging out in cities until they're 40 years old with no desire to have kids. But they're the ones that are going to have to live with that. I mean, it's not, it's, my kids are the most rewarding part of my life. Like I have these businesses that are so exciting. They're profitable. We're having so much fun. But going out, I spent 2 nights ago in a tent with my 6 year old, and he got up and went swimming in a creek. And it was, it was pure joy, like throwing him in his life jacket down this little rapid part and watching him float and laugh the whole way down. Like that's the people who don't understand. And it's look, this life is amazing because you get to do whatever you want. If you want to have fun and no responsibilities your entire life, like you can do that and you can have no kids because kids are work. It's sacrifice and it's work. Keeps me humble. I like struggling. Like it helps me stay grounded. But I think the most important part of life is having kids, and it's my duty as a well-to-do person who loves and cares for their kids to have as many as possible. So my wife and I both feel that way, luckily.
Wow. How many children do you want?
I would have 5 or 6 kids, but it all depends on my wife's health and where she's at and what she wants to do too. So we've settled on 4 or 5 right now. We have 3 so far.
Wow. Well, that's remarkable. And I think like having one thing that's clear is like a long-term vision and a long-term, because you talk a lot about when I'm, 70, 80 years old, I want to be able to sit back with my grandchildren and their significant others. And that's going to be like something I'm really looking forward to. When did
Every
that?
50-year-old, everybody who's 50 and up that has kids, their whole world revolves around their kids. No matter how successful they are, no matter how big of a badass they are, their entire life revolves around their kids. Is that a coincidence? Is that just like, oh, all of a sudden when you're 50, you love kids and it's just the way the person changes? No, it's because it's fucking awesome. It's awesome. There are people who I knew that all they did was bar hop and play music and run around the country in a band living free spirits. And now they have kids and they spend every weekend at Little League games and they have so much fun that they can't stop themselves. Do I think that's just a coincidence? No, it's amazing. It's amazing watching a little version of you grow and tackle the world and win and succeed and laugh and have fun. So yeah, it's my goal is to be an old man sitting in a leather chair. It's Christmas Eve and I got a big ass house and we played golf the day before and my whole family's there and they like being around me. They want to be around me. And it's just chaos in my house. Like I have grandkids tearing up all my nice shit and I'll be happy about it.
When did that long-term vision for you start?
As soon as I had the first kid, like it really didn't hit me until the first one was born, which is odd. Like the desire to raise good kids, the desire to have more kids, the importance on being a father, it didn't hit me until that little baby was in my arms that day, which sucks because so many people miss out on it.
Yeah. I guess the only way to experience that is to have a child or learn from people like you or hold one yourself or really appreciate it because yeah, it seems like it seems like the reason why we're here.
I think
And
too many people are way too picky now on spouses too, just like
mm,
entrepreneurship. Like that sounds silly. People are very picky about what business they go after because there's so much education around all the different businesses they could go after.
there are
You
more
can read
options.
Cody Sanchez, you can read me, you can read all these books, you can look into all these business models. The internet puts all the information right at your fingertips, so you can just research and research and research for years without actually starting a company. The dating apps and the travel and just the sheer number of people in these cities, it makes people think that they got to go find a perfect person. A perfect person needs to exist. When in reality, find somebody you can trust and that has the same moral values as you, and get married, like, and then start having kids. Like that's I feel pretty strongly that people are way too picky when it comes to who they're going to marry. Um, so yeah, that's my spiel on that.
Well, it's like there are more options than ever before for businesses to start and for partners to have. And if there are more options, our brain looks at more options and says, I want the best one. And of all the best ones, it's like, well, you're going to have to go through 1,000, 2,000 to figure out the best one. And hence you never start or it takes you a while. And
I have a
that's
lot of
a
friends who
modern
are
day problem.
I have a lot of friends who are living in cities. They're 35 years old now. They're they've been dating somebody for 3 or 4 years, 5 years sometimes. They're just still not convinced it's the person. They're afraid to commit because it's just the sheer number of options, and it's sad. It's sad to see.
Is there anything we can do about it? Or
Only they can do it. They're not going to listen to a podcast on me and propose the next day. We can
yeah,
build
you're right.
families. I mean, look, we can build families, and we can show our kids how important it is to have a great family dynamic, and I'm going to show my daughters how they deserve to be treated by treating their mom the right way. I'm going to show my sons how to treat their wives. I'm going to, just pass on what I can so that hopefully they'll feel the same as me.
Yeah. I think leading by example is the best way. I like to end these podcasts with challenges for the audience. I ask the guests for a challenge to do something from something we spoke about or something we haven't covered yet, and to have somebody take an action step. Does
Mm-hmm.
a challenge come to mind from everything we spoke about or something we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, I think a way to get ahead in life is to solve problems for people who are in positions ahead of where you are. So if you're at work, look down at the corner office, look at your boss, and figure out a problem that he's dealing with, a stress that he's dealing with, or she, and solve it. If you keep thinking that way, instead of being a little bit insecure, I don't want to step on any toes, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to do what I'm told, I'm going to do my work, I'm going to grind, I'm going to get promoted when the seniority kicks in, and I've been here longer than anybody else who's willing to be here. It's just life's not going to give you what you want. You got to take it. Like, you got to ask for what you want. So too many people go to work and they're either A, trying to just do the bare minimum to get paid next week and not get fired, or B, they think that loyalty and grinding and showing everybody how hard you can work is the way to get ahead, when it's really not. You solve a big problem or a small problem for somebody in a position of power ahead of you, that will prove to them that you have potential and that you're worth investing in and that you could potentially manage people, you could get promoted. So I think a company is a very good place to learn how to be an entrepreneur, to learn how to manage, to learn how to delegate. You're doing it on somebody else's dime. There's no risk. When the big problems come, you can pass them up the chain. Most people do work for businesses, frankly, and that's a great place to be. But if you want to make real money and advance your career, look down the hall at your boss, figure out what they're dealing with, what stresses they're dealing with, and go solve those problems. Take initiative. Don't just jump in and surprise them, but tell them what you want to do. Come to them with a plan. Tell them what you want to do, how you want to do it. Do that for a couple of years in a row, and you'll be really surprised at how far you can get in your career.
I love that. That's great advice. Nick Huber, ladies and gentlemen, at Sweaty Startup on Twitter. Anywhere else we should send people to connect with you further?
I think the thing that I work the most on right now is my newsletter. I send a email every week, sometimes two, and it's on delegation, it's on hiring, it's on management, it's on real estate, it's on growth, marketing, sales, and I put a lot of energy into those things. So you can sign up for that at sweatystartup.com, and you can get an email from me once a week, and I think it'll make you better at what you do.
Nick's link for that is down below, as well as all of his companies that he runs. Dude, thank you so much for spending the time here today. I really appreciate your wisdom, your willingness to learn, your strong beliefs loosely held, and the way you show up in the world. Keep being you, keep doing it. And I appreciate you for coming on and for sharing the wisdom here today.
Thanks for having me, Danny. You did an excellent job.